fractured team which doesn't perform according to expectation, or you have a high attrition rate at your place, then both these can be part because of the unconscious bias that you have. And unconscious bias is about several kinds. The most prominent of these are conformational bias, perception bias, and mm, affinity bias, and halo effect. All these categories of biases that experts talk about, but in everyday term, on practical terms, all this translates to one getting, as a recruiter, if you are getting biased about recruiting a certain kind of people, then this will get reflected in workplace also eventually. So what kind of perceptual bias that we have, suppose somebody has performed sorry, very highly in the past, but recently he or she has been failing very often. So mm, we go on excusing her and giving her high evaluation rate, thinking that she has been an excellent performer, she or he has been an excellent performer in the past. So if you observe in my conversation, I am referring to a she more often than the he. Why? Because there is a, when I was reading about this unconscious bias, there has been an unconscious bias entered into my mind because I what I read was against women. So most of the top companies, those are actually are underrepresented by women at the leadership positions, and that is what I didn't like. So that is not about judgment, but it judgment of logical judgment, objectively evaluated, but it is a influential judgment, and that is part of the perception. Me being a lady, I don't like anything which is going against women in general. But coming back to my workplace, do I prefer women as a recruiter? Because I have been as a team leader, I also sometimes have my opinion to recruit a certain kind of person. And suppose I am given a choice of a man and a woman, do I uh, do I make a biased opinion, biased choice? So yes, at times. Biased means what kind of bias? Like say choosing according to gender, because we have to have 33% of gender representation in our company. So I go by that standard. Like the standards are company standards are good actually. That actually overcomes one's bias. So even if I have a gender bias, if it is 33% of recruitment in a company, that means in every team there has to be 33% of women. So that will actually overrule my judgment, my bias, and it will work for the good of the company, and that has to happen. So it will not kind of ask for my judgment, but it will obey the company rule, which is a standardized rule. And standardization is a process by which this unconscious bias is very easily kind of overcome. Yes, and then affinity bias. Affinity bias is like, say, suppose somebody is coming from my own school, my community, or my state, or my district, then I have a certain kind of affinity towards that person, and I kind of uh, tend to support the recruitment of that person into my team. Now this is an unconscious bias, but why do I choose that person? Because that person will be, like say, coming from my own community or my own place. It will have a better understanding in the team. So that is the assumption that I have. But that may be true at times. But no, when the recruitment happens, it is not about my choice, my liking. Although in the smaller team, it actually plays a very huge role. Uh, you cannot afford to kind of recruit somebody whom you don't know. You don't have any common uh, element with which to team up with that person, to gel with that person in a shorter period of time. So we choose certain affinity group so as to save time on team building, right? So that is the logic, that is the argument we give. But going forward, is it a good thing? Because I could have got another better person with whom maybe there was a chance of getting better jailed, and I just let go that opportunity. What I could have done there? Actually, I would have uh, evaluated the resumes properly, and while doing face-to-face interview, I could have judged that person whether there is an element of acceptance in that person to um, to my personality, because he is also observing my personality as to whether he or she can gel easily, whether they can feel comfortable. Like say, given all other factors, um, all other factors which are acceptable, there are candidates who will reject the company for its biasness also. And in that case, without me being in the forefront, the company suffers because of that. And the reputation of that company is affected because of my choices. So these are the things I need to be careful about. And yes, and then how can we avoid these uh, influences, these biases? Like say there are when we are in a group, it has been observed that if a majority of people are saying something, then the other people also agree, and they are saying they actually go along to get along. That means what? Like say, if these small majority of people who are proposing emotion, and everybody else is agreeing, uh, the less influential group, that means what? They don't want to have a conflict, even though it is a horrible decision, right? And we need to, as team leader, and if we have that chance of getting influenced, getting biased at some point during the meeting, then we can ask an impartial observer to overlook the proceedings of the meeting, so that he or she, whoever is there, this impartial onlooker, can actually question all the decisions those are taken. If somebody says yes, then that person has to tell the yes, the reason behind that yes also. And if somebody is saying no, that person also has to say a no, the reason behind that no. All the opinions will be documented in uh, that kind of environment, and it takes very little. It doesn't have to be very complicated. It is just a question of common sense, and to accept that everybody has some kind of bias, and the other person, whether that person is agreeing to the a popular choice, eh, one cannot blame that person, because we all are part of that um, unconscious bias. So this is how mm, there are simpler, very simple ways to overcome this, and all of us can do. And if we don't agree, if we don't accept, and we don't correct ourselves, then ultimately this goes to hamper the team affinity and the team culture, the work environment, and ultimately the performance. Yes. So this is with regard to performance optimization that I discussed this subject today, and this is uh, my 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 subject, my course is online, and uh, you can come back to me if you want that course and want to have this practice of uh, optimizing your performance and your team's performance. And let us catch up together. Thank you.